friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We are back with another garden renovation update. We are about to build the one thing that I chose probably mostly for aesthetics and not necessarily function. It has been a dream of mine to have a garden arbor over the gate entrance into the garden for pretty much ever since I started gardening. So we are going to be doing that today. I'm going to show you the build process, and while I'm showing you that on screen, I will talk to you about how I'm planning on using it, because it's not just going to sit there. I'm going to grow something over it, and why I'm choosing that. Oh, here's a little sneaky peeky at the raised bed border fence. Still working on it, but it has been so hot, so it's been a slow progress. But we'll bring you that video update soon. Let's get to building this garden arbor. I chose this arbor by a company called Out Sunny, and it is made of fir wood. It smelled so good. It is 7.5 feet tall, and the reason why I went with this one, for the main reason, is that for the width of it. It is 63 inches wide, and I really wanted a bare minimum of 5 feet wide, and shockingly, a lot of the garden arbors out there were a lot more narrow than 5 feet. So I mentioned before that I have dreamed of an arbor as my garden entrance for a long time, and honestly, part of the reason is just because I think they're beautiful, but I also like the idea of having something that marks the transition from the yard into the garden, that makes the garden feel like its own special place. And I have learned the importance of adding joy to the garden to keep me motivated when the work is really hard, because the garden definitely has its fair share of frustration and labor, and adding beauty is a way to keep it a joy-filled place and a place that I want to be in. I've always had this picture in my head of having something growing over an arch, like a grapevine or roses or wisteria. I think the grape question is settled now, because I recently added a chicken run in the garden, and I decided that I'm going to use that as a trellis for the grapes, because the chickens will help me take care of the Japanese beetles that really love and attack grape and muscadine vines, and will also help provide some shade for them in the summer. And then, of course, they'll be cut back in the winter when they really need the sun, so it just kind of complements that well. So that leaves me with the choice between a climbing rose or a wisteria, and I'm still very much undecided. The climbing rose would give me flowers, a fragrance, and that really classic garden look. But wisteria growing over an arbor is just pretty hard to beat, in my opinion. When it's in bloom, it looks so magical. Y'all, please let me know your thoughts and ideas in the comments of what to grow over it. I always look forward to reading what you all have to say. You might be wondering why I didn't build this arbor from scratch when we've built so much of ourselves so far for the garden. And believe me, I considered it. Normally, I'm pretty happy to DIY things. By the way, this wood smelled so good. I kept sniffing it throughout the project. Kind of weird. But anyway, I had to be realistic about this particular project, and more importantly about everything else that's going on. We still have so much work to do in the garden. We have the raised bed border fence to finish, the shed, the covered workstations are still on the list, and there are about a dozen other things I'd like to get done before fall sets in. So when I decided that I wanted an arbor, I didn't want to turn it into another big construction project. I wanted something I could put together quickly, preferably in less than 2 to 3 hours, get it out in the garden, and move on to the next thing. And that's where a kit like this one made a lot of sense for me. This particular arbor comes with the pieces already cut and drilled, as you can see, and the hardware is included, so it's really just a matter of putting everything together paint by number style. It's also been so incredibly hot outside, hence why I'm assembling this inside. Spending several hours outside cutting lumber sounded completely miserable, and when it's this hot, it just limits overall how much we can get done in a day. So sometimes DIY isn't about building absolutely everything from scratch. Sometimes it's about knowing where you want to spend your time and where you don't, and where it's going to be best invested. And for me, going the kit route was the winner chicken dinner. I'd much rather spend my time working on those bigger garden projects than spending an entire day building this from scratch. I especially want to return my attention back to that raised bed border fence. We've run into a couple of issues, but we will have a dedicated video on that showing, the problems we've been running into, the solutions we're doing, and the finished product and all of that. I'm really excited to bring y'all that as soon as possible. I know many of you are waiting to see it in all of its finished glory. I did notice a mistake in the instruction manual where the number steps 3 and 4 were switched. Obviously, you have to have those curved arches on first before you can put those corner braces on. But we're going to get this assembled, and stay tuned, and we will show you the finished product and how we are going to anchor it into the ground. Now for the moment of truth. I was by myself at this point. I didn't have anybody to help me stand it up on its feet, but I figured, you know what, I'm just going to go for it anyway. It was very lightweight and easy for me to do myself. I was just worried about one of those legs kicking out, but the bolts up at the top seemed pretty sturdy, so I went for it, and I'm glad I did because I was able to just move on with the project and not have to wait for my husband to get home. But I was so excited with how it looked. So the whole thing took about an hour and a half to build. And then once the rest of my family got back home, I got their help to carry it outside. As soon as my oldest son walked in the door, he was like, "Mom, how are you going to get that out?" And at first I had a moment of a panic attack. But then I was like, "No, we'll just put it on its side and carry it out like a ladder, just like this." And it worked out fine. Anyway, getting it sat up, it was kind of sketchy because one of the legs kept wanting to bend in, but it was fine. But once I got it into its place, I kind of stepped back and we just kind of finagled it a little bit. I will say that actually several of you commented that about where my garden entrance should go and that it needed to be at the end of the raised beds, and I'm so glad that I listened to y'all. You were absolutely correct. So that's where we ended up putting it. So before or during the installation process, I just took a can of white spray paint and marked the holes, which was kind of hard to do. It kept wanting to wobble all over the place. This thing is definitely not going to withstand high winds. It's not going to stand up by itself without being anchored. It's got to be anchored down somewhere. So we decided to dig some holes and set the holes in concrete, essentially. So that's the steps that we're working on. I did go ahead and put it closer to the gravel side so that I wouldn't have to constantly battle grass on all of it. Obviously you can see that one of my holes of where the legs are going to go is in the grass, but I am just going to put some more weed barrier there and extend the gravel out that direction a little bit. I used my garden weasel shovel to dig out the holes. I love this thing. If you've seen our garden videos from years past, you've seen me do my transplanting with this, and I absolutely love this shovel. It was hard to punch through that gravel, but it worked good for the job. It gives you about 6 inches, about a 6-inch hole, with just a little bit of rotating and pushing down. Once we got started with the concrete, I forgot to set up my camera, and we just had to move so fast to get that concrete set. But we did get the concrete in, and I have checked on it today, and it is good and solid. Here's how it looks from the outside walking into the garden, and I could not be happier with how this turned out. I am considering painting it. I really like the raw wood look, but it doesn't really kind of match or complement the garden, so I'm thinking about painting it white or gray to match the chicken coop, which is like a darker version of the metal raised beds. I feel like a dark gray or a light gray or white would complement it better.
Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I have way too many animals. The link to that garden arbor will be in the description box if you'd like to check it out. I'll see you next time. Bye.